This is another episode of Blunder or Blunder, featuring an interview with AWR Ring Announcer Earl Joesph.
Guys, this is your boy, Walt Beezy Baby, and I am here with Earl Joesph. This man is legendary here in the realm of independent professional wrestling. His voice is magic, and it's absolutely a pleasure to be here with you tonight, my friend.
No, thank you. It's my pleasure, honestly.
All right, let's get to this. All right, tell me, you are known as the Liverpool Whip. How did you find your way to the United States of America and right here in Hoosier State?
Oh man, you know, it's not, unfortunately, I don't have like a huge origin story like a superhero, you know. I met the woman who would become my wife online over Facebook, and we got talking, and sure enough, we got to know each other enough, and I got a visa, got married, came over to Indiana, of all places. I tell you, a couple of years ago, I could not have pointed out Indiana on a map, but that doesn't mean I don't love this place.
That's sweet, man. What would you say would be the moment that's just, you could pinpoint that got you bit by the pro wrestling?
I think it would be about, I was born in 1985, I hate to ruin the fun for you, but it would have been about 1990, 1991. I watched The Undertaker on WWF Superstars. He squashed a jobber, and he hit him with the tombstone and put that guy in a body bag. And then he put the guy in the body bag, hit the leg drop, and I remember watching that as a kid, and I was terrified, right? And to have something that makes you react with such a visceral moment, which makes you react with fear, with trepidation, with anticipation, which makes you want to watch that moment again and again. And that's when I caught the bug. You see someone like The Undertaker, who's gone on to become one of the great legends of pro wrestling. And it's, I would track it back literally to that moment, to have it. It's like watching a film or listening to a great album. You have that moment and you will always remember it forever. And I would take it back. I wish I remembered the specific match where it happened, but it would have been, good lord, about 91, I think.
91. Well, I was born in 89, so I got a couple years on me, but
I don't want to hear that.
I was a Sting guy myself. I'm a big Undertaker fan, but that's cool though that you said The Undertaker though. You had mentioned to me when we were talking off camera on another time that you had also got your starts like myself in WCWO with the ring announcing. Tell me a little bit about your time with Wild Championship Wrestling Outlaws.
Oh man, I wouldn't be where I am today without that place. It gave me the chance to express myself creatively. When I went there, obviously I stood out with my accent and with my sort of perception and my personality, and of course the way I dress, which is terrible, uniformly.
A lot of people got over.
He's laughing. He knows what I mean.
A lot of people got over those safari shirts, you know. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad choice.
They call them Tommy Bahamas in this country. I call them Hawaiian shirts. But no, if it wasn't for a place like the Dub, then I wouldn't be at a place like AWR. I wouldn't have the chances that I have at New Wave. Pro Wrestling Trainwreck, everywhere else I've been across the United States, and it gave me a chance to hone my craft, to work with people who are, you know, newcomers and veterans, people who have been there and done that, and people who are waiting to be there and do that as well. And it is a panorama of experience, and something that I will always hold in my heart, truly.
Awesome. And who would you say would be your favorite person to ring announce for on the indies that you've had a chance to do an introduction for? Like, what one you just really enjoyed doing? Someone you really enjoyed?
Honestly, I know we're coming just right off AWR New Horizons on Sunday, April 18th, but I would say that I love introducing a guy like Dale Patricks, man. You know, he is from Indianapolis, Indiana. He is the Lord of the Yard. Pro Wrestling's jackass, AWR's baby boy, Dale Patricks. I get to go full-throated, full-voiced. I love it every single time.
And speaking of another favorite, what would you say would be your favorite state or perhaps city that you've ventured outside of Indiana to do a show on for your ring announcing?
Well, I actually haven't been yet outside. Well, I have a little bit outside of Indiana. I've been to Olney and Noble in Illinois. but I hope to get out to places like Nashville. I hope to get out to places like Milwaukee, Chicago, and I want to go northeast, I want to go west, I want to go south, I want to go everywhere in this country, man. Nothing's going to stop me.
And speaking of nothing to stop you and wanting to venture out, have you ever considered maybe doing ring announcing for maybe boxing or MMA? Have you ever maybe wanted to dabble into that too? Because you got a tremendous voice for you, I would ask.
I tell you what I'd really like to do is racing, car racing, stock car racing, demolition derby, which I understand is pronounced demolition derby in this country. I'd like to get into the racing, things where there's high impact, lots of crashes, lots of action, much as you see in pro wrestling.
Definitely seems like the right alley to go for. Back in the day, I remember WCW used to have their motor sports league. They would have Sting cars. They had a Halloween Havoc car. There was a giant car. I think we had a car.
WCW had the monster trucks, right? We saw
Yeah.
Hogan versus the Giants. Yeah, exactly. You know, so it's that perfect marriage of those two things. You know, car racing, wrestling. I'd love to commentate on soccer. I'd love to commentate on NFL. Anything. I think I can do it.
And speaking of commentating, I know you recently made the leap from ring announcing to commentary. Tell me a little bit about that. What that transition is like.
Well, the difference is obviously with ring announcing you have to commentate. You have to announce on the things right in front of you. But when you commentate, you've got to call the action constantly. It is like free-form jazz, and you've got to play the chords as they are presented to you. You have to follow the band, as it were. With commentating, I'm very lucky to work with Flophouse Wrestling and Crab Wrestling, and I work solo as well, a lot like Joey Styles. So you have to follow the action. You have to be able to have a knowledge about the world itself, and I think I have that. And it's about being instinctive, intuitive, and you've just got to be able to be ready at any point to see what happens.
That is very good advice to know. Definitely glad I can have this conversation.
I hope I can follow my own advice sometime.
What would you say would be the highlight what would be the highlight of your career that you would say as a ring announcer? Like, what is like your favorite match, like that biggest high profile match you would say if you could pick one that you've been a part of so far?
I don't know, pass actually. I've honestly, I don't mean to be flippant about that, but I consider every show, every match I call to be the next important one. As soon as I announce one match, I'm always looking at my cards, which I have prepared right here, and I'm always looking to make the next match I announce to be the most important one of all. If you don't do that, the crowd falls out with you, the wrestlers fall out with you. You have to make everything seem so important, otherwise it doesn't really matter.
That is tremendous advice. I will definitely take to heart, my friend. What would you say would be the most interesting fan encounter you've had, either yourself or you've seen somebody else have had?
I'll tell you what, I'll do a screenshot of my Facebook DM sometime, and you can see what the most interesting encounter I've ever had is.
Fair enough. Oh, that I've saved that for part two. As far as going to pro wrestling events as a fan, what would you say would be one that really stands out to you?
I was fortunate enough and old enough, ultimately, to have gone to SummerSlam 1992 in Wembley Stadium, London.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. Look, his eyes are bulging. You see that? British Bulldog versus Bret Hart in the main event for the Intercontinental Championship. And I was, again, I'm from England, as you can probably tell. I went there, my father took me, and I will never forget that moment as long as I live. I was also fortunate enough to go to WrestleMania this year. I went to Sunday night.
That's awesome.
The main event, Roman Reigns, Edge, Daniel Bryan. I was drunk.
He doesn't like seeing the Tribal Chief in action, man. I got to see him beat Rusev at Clash of the Champions.
Beyond that, man, it was just more than a spectacle, and of course there was a special relevance given that the fact it was the first show in a year and a month and a day, according to what Stephanie McMahon told me. And I will never forget both SummerSlam 92 and WrestleMania 2021. You put it on my tombstone as in when I die.
Wow. I mean, it's definitely a goal of a lot of fans to go to a WrestleMania. I've been fortunate enough to go to SummerSlam 2008. I went to the last King of the Ring, and I have Survivor Series under my belt, which was the one here in 2012. So I have a few legendary pay-per-views under my belt. That's cool. 92. You don't hear too many people say they've been to that one. What would you say would be a match that you would really like to announce? If you could pick two wrestlers and put them in a ring and you'd be the ring announcer for it, what would it be?
Well, I think, if I may speak for my own interests, I work for New Wave Pro out in Terre Haute, Indiana. We have a fantastic show right here, right now, Saturday, May 22nd at the Terre Haute National Guard Armory. We have incredible matches. We have Mike Bennett versus Cole Radrick.
Awesome.
Yeah, we have Jordan Oliver versus Don't Die Miles. Solomon Tupu, Aaron Williams, Nate Matthews versus Ace Perry. If I had the choice, I would call any of those matches, and I would make it seem like the greatest match of all time, each and every time.
That's a great one. Excellent. Wildest moment that you've seen partying with the wrestlers? Like, as far as, like, you partying with all those guys, like, what's the craziest thing you've seen at a party with the wrestlers?
I mean, I don't think it's...
You can omit names.
Speaking on conditions of anonymity, cough, 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 I would say it wouldn't be about the partying. I mean, the partying itself takes place in the ring. A lot of what I've seen at AWR in particular, we're outside here after New Horizons. Last month, I saw Dale Patrick's throw Mickey Knuckles right through a glass pane, right through the bottom of the ring. And it isn't about partying, it's about seeing those moments. And if you love wrestling, you would call that a party.
Definitely. I like that answer. What is the most bizarre place that you've been a part of for a wrestling show? Like, what is, like, one venue, like, wow, I never thought I'd be here for a wrestling show?
Greensburg, Indiana.
What kind of building was this?
No, I'm being flippant, sorry. No, it was a high school gym. I would say that every venue I go to for wrestling is bizarre in a good way in its own place, because anyone who will assemble and buy tickets and promote a show in those places is always, you know, a little on the strange part, and that's what makes pro wrestling so great. I hope to call a show someday in someone's garage, you know, in the nightclub. I tell you this much, actually. I was down in Tampa, Florida, of course. I cited WrestleMania. I called for Flophouse Wrestling and Crab Wrestling in a parking lot or a car park in Tampa, Florida. In the baking heat, man. And we had traffic going past the whole time. They were honking their horns all the while. You could see people leaning out their cars going, what's going on here? What's going on here? And that was constant action, constant refilling of what you're trying to do. So I would say that was the most bizarre, if you would.
Fair enough. Funniest blunder you've seen in the ring?
Probably my own. My first, I used to wrestle as Lord Britannia. And in my very first main event in Paragon, Indiana, I did a drop kick. I landed really badly and shattered my wrist into about 1 million pieces. My friends, you can see the scar right there.
Good Lord.
Yes, and that would be probably the most bizarre incident in my wrestling career so far. It really, really fucking hurt.
Most interesting fact about yourself that people would not be aware of?
I used to work for a pornography company in Barcelona, Spain.
Okay.